Hello, welcome to another session in our teaching series, Hidden Facts in Biology. We are looking at the respiratory system, and other these we'll be talking about the respiratory system in plants. First of all, I want to let you know that plants do not have special respiratory organs for gaseous exchange. So that brings us to the question: how then do gases move in and out of the plant? Gases move in and out of the plant through stomata and lenticels. So, what are the stomata and what are lenticels? Stomata are very thin openings found in the epidermis of leaves and stem of seedlings. Each stoma is surrounded by two bean-shaped cells called the guard cells, and these guard cells have chloroplast. The opening and closing of the stomata are controlled by the guard cells, while lenticels are breathing pores that permit the exchange of gases between the environment and the internal tissues of plants. We are going to be looking at the mechanism of opening and closing of the stomata pore with the help of a diagram. First of all, I want to let you know that the opening and closing of the stomata pore, which is also known as the stoma, depends on the turgidity of the guard cells. That is to say, variation or changes in sugar pressure will also lead to change in the shape of the guard cells. Now we'll first take the opening of the stomata pore or stoma and the processes that are involved. The guard cells have chloroplasts, and the chloroplasts of the guard cell carry out photosynthesis during the day. So that is the chloroplast of the guard cell which carries out photosynthesis during the day. Sugar manufactured during photosynthesis increases the concentration of the cell sap, and this will cause water to move from the adjacent epidermal cells into the guard cells by the process of osmosis. The guard cells then become turgid. The pressure resulting from the turgidity causes the bulging of the thinner cell walls to press into the adjacent epidermal cell. This causes the thicker inner cell wall to assume a crescent shape. When we say a crescent shape, we mean a half moon shape or the shape of letter C, and thus opening the stomata pore. So this is what happens during the process of opening of the stomata pore. Now let's look at the process of closing the stomata pore. At night, when photosynthesis has ceased, the sugar in the guard cells is converted into starch. The concentration of the cell sap of the guard cells is now lower than the adjacent epidermal cells. This will lead to water to move by the process of osmosis from the guard cells to the adjacent epidermal cells. That is to say, water will go out of the guard cells, and this will lead to the stomata pore or stoma to close. So this is the process involved in closing of the stomata pore. Having explained the opening and closing of the stomata with the aid of this diagram, the next thing we are going to be looking at is the mechanism of gaseous exchange through the stomata and the lenticels. Gaseous exchange in plants is by stomata on the leaves and lenticels found on the stem. In completely submerged aquatic plants like algae and floating aquatic plants like water lettuce, the exchange of gases is by diffusion all over their body surface or through the stomata in their leaves. Terrestrial plants, however, exchange gases mainly through the stomata present in their leaves, lenticels in their stems, and through the roots from air spaces in the soil particles around the roots. Stomata have been observed to open during the day and close at night. Therefore, light intensity is seen as a major factor controlling stomata movement, that is, the opening and closing of the stomata. There are some other factors that are associated with stomata movement, and they include water balance of plants, and concentration of carbon dioxide in the surrounding air. Within plants close their stomata. They do this in order to conserve water. This is because when plants lose too much water, they start to wet and their cell lose Tugor pressure. The Tugor pressure, like we said, is the pressure of water inside the cell walls. And in order to reduce further water loss through evaporation, these plants close their stomata. And by closing their stomata, the plant limits transpiration, and this helps to conserve the little water that they still have. This response in wheating plant is a survival mechanism in order for them to cope with water stress. Low concentration of carbon dioxide causes stomata to open, whereas high concentration of carbon dioxide causes the stomata to close. Another factor that plays an important role in the opening and closing of the stomata is the osmotic pressure within the gas cells. There is an important role in the opening and closing of the stomata. Although we discussed this in the diagram earlier on, we just repeat it for the purpose of emphasis. When the osmotic pressure is high, the gas cells usually become turgid, and as a result of which the stomata pore opens. But when the pressure is low, the gas cells become flaccid and the pore is closed. In general, the movement of gases and water vapor in and out of the leaves is controlled by the opening and closing of the stomata. Now let's talk about the lenticels. The lenticels are breathing pores that permits the exchange of gases between the environment and the internal tissues of plants. They are always open, and this is in contrast to the stomata, which regulates their extent of opening. Lenticels are found on the epidermis of different plant organs, such as the stem, the petiole, and fruit. Having spoke about the mechanism of gaseous exchange through stomata and lenticels, now we'll be going to the difference between respiration and photosynthesis. So we have tabulated what we are going to be using to talk about the differences between the respiration and photosynthesis. So the first difference is that respiration occurs in every living cells, while photosynthesis occurs only in autotrophs. The second difference is that respiration releases energy, while photosynthesis makes use of energy. The next difference is that respiration results in a decrease in weight, while photosynthesis results in an increase in weight. The next difference is that high energy containing food, that is oxygen and carbohydrates, are used for respiration, while for the process of photosynthesis, low energy substances like CO2, that is carbon dioxide, and H2O, that is water, are used. The last difference we'll talk about is that in respiration, food substances are broken down, that is the process of catabolism, while in photosynthesis, food substances are built up, that is anabolism. So this brings us to the end of our teaching. Now we'll be looking at some questions briefly. Our first question here says, which of the following structures would carry out respiration? First option, which is option A, says a germinating cowpea. Option B says a colorized leaf. C says a dry leaf. And D says a boiled cowpea. The answer to this question is A, a germinating cowpea. And this is because a germinating cowpea contains cells that are actively dividing, hence needs energy that is produced through respiration. This is the next question, and in this question we are be given a diagram, and the diagram must be labeled in numbers from number 1 through 5. And the question says, in the above diagram, the cell which controls the opening and closing of the stomata pore is. If we look at the diagram, the answer to this question is answer E, because answer E is label 5, and label 5 is the guard cells, and it is the guard cells that controls the opening and closing of the stomata. The next question says, in plants, respiration occurs in A, mesophyte cells only, B, the root only, C, the stomata and lenticels only, and D, all living cells. The answer to this question is D, all living cells. And this is because respiration takes place in all living cells of a plant. This is true because living cells of a plant need energy for their metabolic activities. This energy is produced through the process of respiration. However, it is important for you not to confuse exchange of gases, which takes place in the stomata and lenticels, with respiration, which occurs inside the cells. The next question says heat produced in tissue respiration in plants is a chemical form of energy, B, the main form of energy, C, a useful form of energy, D, the only form of energy. The answer to this question is A. Heat produced in tissue respiration in plants is a chemical form of energy. This brings us to the end of our examples. We'll be taking some exercises now. These exercises are taken from our textbook, Hidden Facts in Biology, page 168. The answers have been provided in the answer section of the book. Try the questions and get either the soft copies or the hard copy to check your answers. Thank you for listening.